Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. You know, we do a lot of stuff in special months of the year, but Pride is something that's very near and dear to me personally, and also near and dear to ProudMouth. But our guest today isn't just here to talk about Pride and his podcast, The Rainbow Bull, which we're going to dive into more deeply. He's going to talk about how you can use services like his, what he does, what his expertise is, and what his specialty is to help you as a financial advisor separate yourself from the advisor down the street, and also offer services talking about inclusion, transference of wealth, all of those different things that all of you know are super, super important, but you don't really have the experience, nor do you have the tools or the stories or the systems to be able to go ahead and execute that in your advisory practice. So I would like to introduce all of you to Tim Volk. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, so happy to be here. Very excited. Woo!
I just
Pride.
Just so everybody knows, Tim and I have been talking for 20 minutes. It's about life and, you know, the universe and all of that sort of stuff. I just think you're just a magnificent human being. I love any time that I get to spend with you. You come to office hours all the time in our academy to ask us good questions, and you take lots and lots of notes. But I want to level set everything, and let's talk about why did you start the Rainbow Bull podcast? What was your motivation behind that?
The genesis.
Yeah.
It goes back to the time of Adam and Eve. No, it was interesting. I was having lunch with a friend of mine who used to be the executive overseeing a reality TV company. And she and I were sitting there one day, and I was commiserating about I was relaunching my advisory practice and my consulting practice after having been in-house for 2 or 3 years with a client. It was easier to go in-house for compliance reasons than it was to stay external. And she said, you know, what we really need to do is we need to get you to be able to tell your stories. You have great stories. And she says, I love what you talk about. You've got this amazing knowledge on a broad level of topics, because we had talked about a bunch of stuff. And she said to me one day, she's like, look, you know, my husband and I, we've done very, very well. And some people would consider us wealthy, but I would really love to hear what you've learned and the secrets you've learned working with wealthy families. Well, she didn't say secrets. I'm saying secrets, but
Sure.
The things I've learned working with wealthy families and what we can all learn from it. And she says, and I think this would be a really great way to target your LGBTQ community, which, you know, thanks to ProudMouth, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. And our LGBTQ and our allies. I think that, and she said, what I think you need to do is start a podcast. It's the easiest thing for you to do. And I think people would really like it. So I had been part of wealthmanagement.com, had me on their podcast. And Alec, was it Alec? I think it was who was my host? Who was my producer at the time? He was part of he and his wife have gone in to do the,
Eric.
Eric.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Arik. Right. That's right. And
yeah.
he was so cool. That's why I reached out to him, and he says, well, you got to meet Matt. And that was sort of boom, boom, boom. And then when I met you, I was like, okay, this is so cool. We just connected, and I'm a fan. I'm a Matt fan. I'm a ProudMouth fan. I guess if Lady Gaga has monsters, then ProudMouth has, I don't know. We have to come up with, we have to, what are we?
No, that's a troubling question.
Listeners, dancers? No, ProudMouth. No, we have to come up with it.
Give me. So we refer to the things that we do as Proudmouthian, but that actually doesn't really that doesn't translate into, you know.
Sounds very.
Yeah, thank you. That's very official.
Isn't
that nice?
Very formal.
I'm a big Bridgerton fan, and I love watching those.
I love
Bridgerton.
Bridgerton.
So, dude,
I love so certain people in Bridgerton better, but yeah, I think that's how it started, and it's interesting. I really like it. I don't know what to say.
Let's deconstruct that a little bit. So a friend told you that you needed to do that. You found a trusted partner to be able to help you execute it. But why are you doing it? I mean, why are you Why are you, I need a little bit more of the origin story for our audience to really truly understand. So you tell these great stories. What the hell are these stories? What do you do? And then why does that translate into such great content?
Really, really good question. So I would say I have a technical background in finance. I have a degree in finance, a master's in business. I'm a certified financial planner. I've spent the last 20 years in wealth management in some capacity, most of it focused on the ultra high net worth space, or typically with families that have operating interests, operating companies that have done very well, and then they either have monetized that holding or they've kept it and they've got enormous wealth from that. So I came from a multi-generation family business. I'm the fourth generation in our family. So I grew up in it. I worked for my family for the first 12 years, then worked for corporate America for two big banks, PNC Bank and BMO, Harris, BMO Bank, Bank of Montreal, for a total of 12 years. And then I have my consulting practice for the last 12 years. Wow, that's sort of weird. 12. No, that's math. Because I'm only 39.
I know, dude. I can't. You started really, really young.
So I was 3. And I think that what's interesting in the work, Matt, is that a couple of my mentors that work in the space, namely James Hughes, said to me, we don't have a lot of openly gay people in our space. I don't feel like there's a voice for the community in our space. And I'm going to encourage you to write and speak more openly about that.
Okay.
So I've started to do that. I've written some white papers. I've told stories, but I also feel like it's not the whole me. It's an important part of who I am. But, people say to you, well, when did you know you were gay? And I'm like, I don't know. When did you know you were straight? So it's sort of it just happens. I think that nobody's ever going to feel sorry for wealthy families because they've got a lot of money, and we perceive money to be the ultimate thing in this country. However, the families that have enormous wealth have as many problems, if not more problems, than a normal family. And then ironic that the family issues are very similar on all families. We all face some of the same issues. So even though I have a technical background, and my family enterprise was focused on real estate, banking, and insurance. So I have a technical background in all those areas, and I feel very comfortable in those areas. That when I moved into wealth management, I went back to learn wealth management, which I enjoyed. But I kept getting asked to do big projects, big strategic things, trying to make things like move the needle for the organization. And then the families that I worked with were wanting to talk to me about the family. And so I think you were the one that helped point it out to me one day when you said, Tim, I think it's interesting that you get asked to focus on the human issues around wealth, rather than somewhat of the technical issues. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I have a passion to help others, and that the podcast is a way to do that. And I think what you've taught me is it's probably the first door to many doors that we have to open in that process. Yeah. I'm sure ABC or CBS is probably wanting to know if I would host one of the late night shows right now, but I'm busy. Yeah. I'm really busy.
Yeah. Oh, we'll make sure, because I know they listen. So we'll make sure that they reach out to your agent.
Oh yeah. I'm sure.
And get that scheduled. Okay, so we've got the technical background. We've got the understanding of why you've used podcasting as a medium to open some of those doors. Mm-hmm. But our audience are financial services professionals, and they have families who are trying to successfully pass wealth down to the next generation. Right. That is your specialty. Mm-hmm. What do you do? Like, so if I was an advisor and I said, okay, you know what, I've got this high net worth family or ultra high net worth family that we work with. They're really concerned about A, B, and C. I want to bring in an expert, which you are that expert. What would you do for my practice Because, by the way, just so everybody knows, this is wildly applicable to all of the stuff that Tim covers in the Rainbow Bowl podcast. So you should subscribe to that. But at the same time, let's walk through what an engagement with an advisor would look like.
Sorry. Okay. Great question. I find it interesting. I've been engaged by advisors on a variety of topics and projects. And it's somewhat easier to think about on project basis, so sort of in your mind, okay, because it's typically where either one, they don't have time, which most people think, well, I don't know why they don't have time. And all they do is manage money. And your life is crazy. I mean, your life inside the business is, and you try to have this beautiful calm when you're on top of the water, but you just don't see that under the water, you're like a duck. Yeah. You're just paddling like crazy. And I think that with my experience with some of my brethren is that they need help, either in time or in a different perspective. And they sometimes like bringing me in because it gives a different perspective, a little more objectivity to the conversation with them and their client. And it's not unusual for us to work together with the client, or they may say, this is beyond what we feel comfortable with. It's beyond the scope of what we do. And I would prefer to have you, and if you have someone else that you want to partner with to work with with this family, that would be great. So in some cases, I've had friends of mine that we've tag teamed together, because sometimes I think we always like, if we're going to do interviews, for example, one of the projects we've had that's common is to interview the family members as to where they're at, what they're thinking, how they like either what the family's already done, already has, or perhaps what it is that they think needs to happen different. So I also find it interesting when you get to talk to somebody, and we have the same questions we ask everybody. We've also interviewed some of the key members of the business. So if they own an operating company or they have a board of directors, we interview all those people. So some of the key employees of the family. And then we try to put together sort of the common thoughts, and we also talk about where they're different. And that helps the family start to identify whether or not they're moving towards their goal. And some of them may or may not have actually articulated the goal. So we help to create the goal. What are the objectives and goals you have? So if your goal is to have great tax efficiency in the money transfer, all our brethren in the industry do that with a 99.9% accuracy, right? We're good. If you're talking about how we're going to raise a healthy family, and you're talking about how do I talk to my kids about the money, or how do we create structure in the family, such as a family council, and many families will say, oh, Tim, we're just not that big of a family. We don't need a family council. And I'll say, okay, well, who are the people in the family that are the champions of the family? They're the ones that host the luncheons, the barbecues, the holiday dinners, the graduation party. And it's usually a group of the same people. And I said, so would you call them the champions? They said, yes. I said, so what if we create the family committee of the champions and start to think about this on a more strategic level? And who's going to be part of that? And what are the succession plans for those people? Because some families, if it was Aunt Susie or Aunt Martha that hosted Aunt Martha and Uncle Doug hosted the family gatherings because they had a big home and they had a big barn that everybody could be in. And then Aunt Martha dies and Uncle Bob's in the nursing home. Okay, then what? So as a family, we have to continue these traditions. And so I help them to think about that. That's been a project. We've been asked, and it's helpful for the advisor to hear a lot of this because they may not know all this is going on. Right. We've also had discoveries in the process when we do this. Like there's another sister that they don't talk about because she's the black sheep and nobody knows about her. And she lives in, Santa Monica, and she lives with a friend. And they drive Subarus. And they do like to go hiking. I'm trying to be funny at the same time. It's not far from the reality. Yeah. And I just sit there and go, oh, love Martha. I just don't expect it to be happening in 2023 or 2024. So we see that. We've also uncovered where there's, problems in the family with alcoholism or addictions or eating disorders or so it's been kind of an interesting process for us to help the advisor. That's kind of a typical thing. Or from the business side of because so there's sort of the family side that we get asked to help with, and then there's the business side. I spent my career in business development. When you work for your family, it's all about what the revenue is, what the new money is, where we are with cash. It's when you run your own business, that's the king. So I've spent a career in marketing and development, and that also includes branding and sales activities and lead generation. So I find that that's a lot of fun for me. To me, what's sort of second nature, a lot of people don't see. So that's been really helpful, and it's objective. So if, for example, you own the firm and you've got 3 or 4 really nice advisors and they're all doing a good job, but you're just saying we're not growing the firm other than the assets that we have through the market or a couple friends and family, we'll talk about what you're doing as a lead generation activity. So, for example, if you start a podcast, okay, who's going to be on the podcast? Who's going to lead the podcast? It shouldn't necessarily be the owner of the firm.
Yeah.
Who's an introvert or whatever.
Right.
So that's been fun.
Or a Luddite who, can't figure out how to, turn on a microphone. I'm sorry, I'm going to pause you there because you said something a few minutes ago,
right?
That I think is such a difference maker. It not just about the Santa Monica, Subaru drivers, but you do talk about this, that families of wealth, there could be inheritance issues because of lifestyle, because of religious beliefs, because of drug and alcohol addiction, because of mental illness. And you are comfortable initiating those conversations, which I think is one of the things that really makes your consulting company so fundamentally unique, because that's usually where people run away. You run towards that, and that could be hugely valuable to our audience to be able to have those intelligent conversations, because hopefully all of the advisors that are listening to this has their list of beneficiaries, but they never meet with the beneficiaries. That's and right. They wonder why all of the money disappears after the matriarch and patriarch pass. So could you elaborate on some of that stuff?
It's such a good question. And you can imagine how hard it is to describe that, right? Because, but you've seen it where for some reason I have the gift. My grandmother would say I have the gift of gab. I never met a stranger. I think that translates into people feel comfortable talking to me about these areas that may not be comfortable talking to other people about. And maybe it's because I have a greater sense of empathy because I grew up gay and went through all those challenges of being gay, especially people my age, men my age, versus perhaps maybe the younger generation. Of the new gays, the new LGBTQ plus. I don't want to upset anybody. When I say gay, I mean LGBTQ plus. It's just easier to just say gay sometimes. So, the families face a lot of challenges, all of them. And the joke in the family office space is if you've seen one family office, you've seen one family office.
I like that joke. That's a good joke.
And at the same time, families face similar issues. So in my family, for example, we don't sit down at the table at Thanksgiving and say, the value in our family is really the intellectual capital that sits around this table, or the human capital that sits around this table. And I want to honor that. And I want to honor the forefathers. I mean, we will somewhat honor our forefathers, but I don't think we really think about thanking the grandfather or the great grandfather or bringing that history together to talk about why we're where we're at today and what the value in that. So it helps to create the family values. It helps to anchor the family. It helps to anchor the family members. And so storytelling, I think, is one of the most powerful ways to do that. And I like telling stories. And Fortunately, I have a lot of them, and a lot of people tell me the crazy stories. So, and the crazy ones you remember. And I find that when people are in pain, they need to talk about it at some point. And I don't know that you feel comfortable talking to the advisor that you perceive as your dad or mom's advisor, who've been with the family for a long time. And what I try to express to some of the younger rising gen and the families is that the family members are really lucky to have this long-term advisor typically, because they know the family. Most of the advisors are doing good work. They try. They're concerned about their retirement, their succession. They're worried about the family. They're worried about the kids, just like the parents, because they feel the parents' concern. But I don't think it's easy for them to talk to the kids because they're perceived as somebody else's advisor.
Yep.
So people bring me in, and I can also be the scapegoat if it goes really bad. They can say it's all his fault. I had nothing to do with it.
Listen, man, there's definitely some value to, displacing the blame on that sort of stuff.
That Tim, he just, I'm so sorry. He just gets that way, doesn't he?
Okay, so as we kind of wind down some stuff, I have some podcasting questions for you, because we don't really have a lot of clients who come on the show, but for those out there who either have started their podcasting journey or who haven't started their podcasting journey, what have you really learned in this first year of working with us? What are some tips that you'd give our audience?
Don't stop.
I'm into that, brother. I agree with that.
I think it doesn't always go as planned.
Yeah.
It's okay as long as you communicate more what you're trying to do. And then I've learned to ask for help more readily, brainstorm. And because you have the office hours, I think those are really, really helpful. It's an easy way to find you and talk to you without trying to schedule, a week out.
Yeah.
I also, I've had the fortune of having some great team members from ProudMouth. I call them my team. I know one of them had the audacity to have a baby and take a maternity leave.
What the heck, man?
I don't understand that. I'm like, I could be there in the birthing room with you. I could still ask you questions. Just take your iPhone. I think one of the things that's hard to do is to be yourself. And your coaching has been to try and relax more and not be so uptight. Because I think when you start to get filmed, you're like, okay, sit up straight, just be perfect. Hi, my name is Tim Volk, and I don't think that's of interest. So just be yourself. And if you don't know something, say, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. And what does anybody else think about it? I'm fortunate that I've had some great guests on the show. And I think that's a positive. I think one of the challenges you have, even though you got great guests and you have a great topic, is then how does it help you? How does it help Tim and T.Volk and company? How does it help ProudMouth? And that's where I think that becomes a little more ephemeral in that we're trying to, it's a self-promotion, but it also is to try to highlight that you have some subject matter expertise, perhaps, and maybe have something of value for people to listen to. I'm surprised when I walk into the gym, for example. A couple of people listen to my podcast all the time, and they're like, okay, so when's the next episode out? I just finished the last episode. And I'm thinking to myself, we just recorded that. How the hell?
Yeah. So
there's people listening, and they have interest. And let's talk to me about a year from now. Let's see how we go, because we're about to finish the first year. I think we've got about 22 done. I'm trying to get the last couple done, and I was trying to make them really spectacular, which I know is hard for you to believe. But I can't quite get everybody scheduled. And I think that's the other thing, is that the scheduling becomes a challenge with all these different people. But don't give up. Do not give up.
Yeah. I was just at a conference recently, and somebody had come up to me and said, that they listened to the show. And we've done, I don't know what episode this is, Tim, 470 something, right? And I'm still in awe and so excited when somebody comes up and tells me they've listened to the show. Right. And I think because podcasting is very, very different than other forms of marketing because there isn't immediate feedback, right? I mean, if you post something on social, likes, impressions, comments, shares, whatever, right? Bam, we know right away. We have analytics on all of that. I mean, we do have analytics on the shows, but it really doesn't, it's not anything that's really immediate. So
no, that's true.
yeah.
I think that's one of the hard things. You see the impressions like on LinkedIn. I think last week we got 133 impressions, but the week before I had 900 and some. And so I'm like, what happened? And I'm like, well, it's just different week.
It is. And the algorithm is so finicky, and I'm right there with you. I mean, we post, as you know, we post pretty frequently, and some posts that I think are amazing get no traction. And then something that sucks gets 4,000 people. And I'm like, what the hell, man? And you know, I've talked about this on the show a lot. We really study the algorithms, right? So when the algorithms changes, we're reading trade magazines and all of this stuff to be able to find out. But okay. So as we wrap up today's show, we have two more things for you.
It goes by so fast.
Listen, I know it's totally different when you're not the one asking questions.
I didn't have makeup and hair and everything.
So first question is, if an advisor wants to hire you to come in and work on some of these projects or work with some of their families, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Email me tim.volk@tvolkco.com, tvolkco.com. Or you can call me. I have a website. You can go through the website as well. I'm on the if you're listening to the podcast through the podcast, you can also reach me. It's listed on all the podcasting as well.
So Rainbow Bull Podcast, look for that. You know, we'll make sure that we have links to your website and your contact information. But here's my last question is, you know, I get really focused on, you know, what I'm trying to pull out of you as my guest and somebody who I just, you know, I think very highly of you as a human being. But what should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think I liked when you were asking me why I do it. And I think that the next question is what is it that I want to be able to say about it? And I would like us to be able to say that we were able to help a family or family member that didn't get helped. I would like us to be able to say that because of the work I do with other advisors and coaching them on LGBTQ issues, for example, or issues around inclusion, that they actually feel comfortable talking to the family where the daughter or son is going through is LGBTQ plus, or a lot of families are faced with but young people that are going through, you know, transformation. They're transgendered. And I think that if they just feel comfortable being able to say, okay, I'm happy to talk with you about that. And I've actually had some coaching on that through a friend of mine. And I'm happy to connect you to that person if you don't feel comfortable with me. But if you feel comfortable with me, I have a few more questions about that. And so by maybe helping other advisors feel comfortable with the topic, we can actually save people's lives. Wow. And you know, our suicide rate amongst young gay youth is second. The suicide rate is second killer of young people 14 to 22. Our homelessness is skyrocketing, the same thing of the gay homeless youth. So we do see that families are not all families are accepting. Not all families are like yours and mine. And so how do we help spread that love and help others to help them? And I think the advisors are in a perfect position to be able to identify that and hopefully feel somewhat comfortable, but if not comfortable, they can reach out to any of us.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to end it. Tim, as always, I love hanging out with you, brother. You know, I just thank you for everything that you're doing for the community. Thank you very much for, you know, working with us and trusting us with getting this incredibly important message out into the world. I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you, sir. Me too. All the love. You guys you rock. ProudMouth rocks.
Well, So if you guys want to be involved in ProudMouth, it's actually very, very simple. What we want you to do is to join the PodRock and Influence Academy. This is actually where Tim was talking about the office hours. We have all of these sorts of courses. Just start the journey of creating content. You don't have to outsource it immediately. You can actually start learning how to do it yourself. So go to the ProudMouth website and go to the PodRock and Influence Academy. Go ahead and click on that. We would love to have you there. If you're in the paid version, which by the way is only $200 a month, and you get 8 hours of live office hours with me and our team here, which is an enormous amount of coaching and consulting. We had 4 people on today, and they were all talking and asking me questions. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Plus, we've got, like 34 courses in the academy. We would absolutely love for you to go ahead and join. So go.
I love those
to,
courses, by the way. I want to do a shout out. Those courses are great. I've taken so many of them. They are so helpful.
Oh, thanks, brother. Listen, we put a lot of work into those freaking things, and I want more people to get involved. So, it's a super low barrier to entry. You can start understanding the ProudMouthian philosophy, who we are, what we do, and how you can go ahead and grow your business. So for Tim Volk, this is Matt Halloran. For all of us here at ProudMouth, I'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.